Do you ever wonder why your SP might be pulling away, even though you're affirming and you think you're doing everything perfectly, so why are they pulling away? Well, it's actually not to do with your words, it's more to do with your energy. These are the 3 actions that are pushing your SP away, maybe without you even realizing it. Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video is talking about, of course, your journey with your specific person, and whoever you want your desired relationship to be with, and why there are 3 specific actions and behaviors and things that you might still be doing or contributing to that are kind of holding you back from getting to that end result relationship. And I'm going to delve into all of that today in 3 really important sections. So you want to stay tuned to hear everything. As always, everything will be on screen. So if you have any questions, if you want to ask manifestation questions, coaching related questions, I will not be answering those in the comments. So for anyone still writing those kind of comments on my long form videos, every introduction explains to you guys how to handle that. So they're not going to get answered that way, because it's also not fair to my clients and members if I take time out to do that when people are investing their time and money into more personalized coaching options, which you are more than welcome to do, even if it's only the $8.99 a month membership and you just want to partake in one Q&A. You are more than welcome to do that, or all my free content is available, and everything that has been on screen is linked in the description box, or the join button for my membership is right below. I'm right after this video, I'm actually going to be filming the next members video, so it's something that they got to vote on, and if you want to be part of it, join. And without further ado, now let's start the video. If you're constantly checking your 3D reality, meaning whatever format or level of communication you may have with them, even if it's a famous SP, or you don't need to have a certain background with your specific person. If you're checking for text messages, updates, social media, that they've called you, or just any form of communication and signs of progress with your SP, that is you reaffirming lack and telling your mind, my manifestation isn't here yet. The end result isn't here yet. That's essentially what you're doing. You're feeding into the old story habits, the kind of normal mindset, as I like to say it, the way normal people would think, checking and saying, let me realistically, logically see, is SP online? What are they posting on social media? Have they replied to that text from a week ago, or whatever it may be? You're reaffirming and holding those thought patterns and automated behaviors of lack, of trying to gain validation and looking at your 3D. So then what happens with your SP is, as I said, although it's reaffirming the old story in itself, your SP through everyone as you pushed out is going to mirror that back to you, that energy of lack, the clinging on for, validation or reassurance, even though obviously they have no conscious acknowledgement of this. They have no idea that you're doing it, unless, maybe you're always the first viewer of their social media story or something like that. They have no knowledge or understanding of you internally manifesting them, or your, the depth of your desire, I'm sure, for a relationship, for dating. And they are going to mirror back to you the energy. So subconsciously, they have to feed into whatever your assumptions are. And if it's lack or slow movement or no visible progress, whatever you're reaffirming or holding on to with your 3D reality is what they're going to mirror back to you through everyone being you pushed out. So they're going to reflect the hot and cold behavior, the lack. And that's why you might see kind of things slowing down, because you're not holding on to that faith that you need to have. In quantum terms, observation is what actually observation is what allows you to connect to that quantum reality, that reality and version of your life experiences where that already is in existence, because you've imagined it, therefore it is already real, it's already in existence. So observation is literally going to collapse probability. So any other probability is going to be collapsed into the reality that you're focusing on, but it requires a repetition. And if you keep checking for these signs and checking for these elements in your 3D reality, then you are anchoring yourself to, your mindset to, the version of reality where you don't have that, where they aren't that version. So you want to be very, very careful with what you're thinking, where you're focusing, because you need the repetition of observing the version that you want. That's how your mindset needs to be focused when it comes to your manifestation and, to your specific person. It needs to be predominantly something positive. And basically, it's about trying to get into the mindset, building up the habit of thinking it's already done, it's already mine, it's already been created. And instead of saying, I need to find proof, I need to see the evidence, I need to see the movement, you say, it's already done and it's mine and it's fully on its way to me, or however you want to phrase it, but essentially reaffirming that it is in existence, it is yours, it's going to be yours, it's on its way to you, calming your mind and reaffirming to yourself that it's here. So likewise with the emotional patterns and emotional reactions, the emotional state that you may have, if you're reacting to what your SP does or doesn't do, or what they say, and you don't recognize or try and shift around those negative emotional reactions and automated bodily reactions, the energy and the state that you're allowing yourself to stay in just because of something SP did, then you're keeping yourself stuck in that old story. So you want to make sure that you're at least self-aware. That's the first step, understanding that's the old story. This is, a negative reaction. This is something I want to change. You don't want to be in a state of panic or anxiety or having your mood or day be affected by what your SP does. That's crazy. So in terms of the kind of mindsets, the way your mind would work with the RAS, your reticular activating system, I talk about it pretty much every single video. It's going to filter for evidence of where your dominant state is. So again, if you're focusing on that lack, focusing on the lack of your SP's words or movement or actions towards your relationship, lack of communication, that's what you're going to notice more of. It's going to filter and notice the evidence of feeling ignored, of SP not doing certain things. That's where your mind is going to kind of jump to. So you want to make sure that your dominant state isn't feeding into that. And Neville himself said, change your concept of yourself and you change everything. So again, it's about putting that focus internally. And this is something I've been talking about a lot more in my videos. You should be the main focus when you're working towards a goal, because it's your own mindset, your own habits, good or bad, that you need to be aware of, take responsibility for, and change things around where you can. But recognizing that the 3D behavior, the 3D circumstances and events, that's out of your control in terms of you don't go and change it, you don't force it. So try and react to this from the end state. You can think about this, you can write notes down, you can kind of think to yourself what would tie into the exact result that you want with your SP, but the version of you in the reality where you're chosen, you're loved, you feel secure, you have what you want with your SP, trying to react from that end state. And it's something that's built up through repetition, consistently practicing this. It doesn't need to feel believable, obviously. We're not here to just instantly delude ourselves. I don't believe that's even possible as a human because of the conscious logical mind, and you don't need that, but the belief is built up through the repetition, and you just want to create a positive habit where you're not instantly panicking, instantly jumping to worst case scenario. So trying to force the belief is kind of coming from a sense of control, a need for control, which again is from an anxious mindset, this insecure mindset. And it's not that, again, that you have to have 100% faith in manifestation. You just have to understand how the mindset works, and that you're not trying to control or force belief, but you understand that doing that is resistance. It is the mental resistance, trying to say, well, in order to get the end result, I have to go out and do this, I have to do that. The inspired action and whatever path you're led down and guided to do. For me personally, I also believe it's like being guided by God, by the hand of God, and showing you, this is the way to go to get that incredible life that you should have and that you should have faith in. So knowing you don't need to force it, you don't force the belief, you don't force the action to come in. So if you are trying to force, some of the ways and symptoms and things that you might experience is that you'll notice the time frame more, the lack of communication or how long it's been, which then leads into panicking and impatience. And it's this really negative cycle that you end up perpetuating over and over, and you constantly spiral back into that if you can't get a hold of it and have, self-awareness of when certain things trigger you and knowing, okay, this has been my pattern so far. So you don't need to force the belief. It does build up naturally, and you don't need to force the action to come in either. So disconnecting from that side of the 3D reality, but it's working on your mindset internally. It's all about your thoughts, understanding I can change my neural pathways, my emotional reactions, my mental reactions, and it's built up over time. So as I said, you don't need to believe it instantly, and that's not even realistic. If you have a larger goal, something that your emotions are tied to or is significant to you, which would imply it's not something that you deem extremely realistic, in which case you probably wouldn't even be applying manifestation to it. But for example, manifesting a good day at work, you probably wouldn't do that. You'd probably just go in and hope for the best and put in an effort and say, yeah, I might actually have a good day at work today. And you would leave it at that. So that's an example of a distinction between manifesting your SP versus something that is deemed to you consciously more realistic. It's not about believing it instantly, but the repetition of you repeating your affirmations, thinking positively, flipping around bad mental reactions, making sure you're aware of your emotional state, and, teaching yourself not to immediately panic and immediately, kind of anchor yourself in the end state. Instead, try and incite those positive emotions and positive thoughts with repetition. Then your neural pathways are literally going to be trained to kind of adhere to that and act based on that instead. And that is where but the belief gets built up. It's through all of these practices where the end result is the belief. And what Joe Dispenza actually says, which was, I think he even mentioned this in one of the first videos of his that I ever watched, and I really enjoy the way he explains it, the neuroscience. I personally appreciate his work. I know he's probably a little bit controversial in general, but no, everything he says does have a good foundation, and he describes it as firing and wiring new circuits. So it is literally changing the way your body reacts as well, and that's built up through that consistency. And if you apply robotic affirming and you keep going until it becomes natural, more believable, you don't panic or have this instant resistance or loads of opposing thoughts coming up, and you just keep applying that robotic affirming, which, by the way, you can apply with feeling and focus as well. But that is when you experience and go through that shift internally. When you trust the unseen, you're aligning with divine timing. So you're, like I said, having faith in manifestation, in God, in, how everything is unfolding and coming together and meant to be for you, for your own, like for the best result that you can possibly have for your highest self. And you're trusting and having faith in, I know this end result can be mine, should be mine, will be mine, but I need to stay the course. I need to have that faith and trust. For me as well, having that faith in God helps a lot, not just manifestation, but knowing, of course, God wants the best for me. He already knows the path. He knows what's best for my life, what's best for me, what person is best for me. That's the way I personally view it as well. And you're literally aligning with the perfect timing, the way things are supposed to unfold. So you relinquish that control, and it is a kind of a breath and sigh of relief, honestly, to know, okay, I don't need to have everything figured out. Things can be figured out for me. So your job is just to have that faith and trust and persistence and keep going forward and not letting the 3D push you down, or when things are tough or difficult, you give up and just say, okay, well, that's the reality, and you let it push you down. You keep going. So try and work on not reacting, not spiraling, not trying to force an outcome because you don't need to. And your SP literally mirrors back to you your energy and where your dominant focus is. So I'm going to leave this video here today. Hope that was useful. Do thumbs up, subscribe, turn on that notification bell to stay up to date with everything and to support the channel and get loads more SP advice, because I have a lot more videos coming up on this topic. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.